claro, claro. I just beat it.
Can you guys hear us okay?
What's that?
Okay, let's see what's coming. Meeting, Feast of Greens, in July is in Schooners. The Hive at my place are doing great. Next meeting, what did we say, Tom, what did we say it was gonna be next meeting? Okay.
July was going to be a hands-on smack, our proposal, but
Okay, we'll see what happens and stuff like that. Again, there's things you need to watch for, look for, and that's what Mike is gonna talk about. All right. All right, take it away, Mike.
Well, here, you can do it.
Maybe not.
It's fine. I'll hit the button.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, this is coming my stuff now, but I got the thing going. All right.
Hey, you're Tom.
I know the last time I think I tried to stand over, they couldn't hear.
You guys hear us okay?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay, perfect.
nobody
Well,
responded.
that,
I
okay.
asked.
And they hear Mike.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about the Varroa destructor mite. The presentation Arctic put together, he couldn't make it tonight, so I'm trying to fill in for Arthur best I can. So if you guys,
Thank you.
yeah, if you guys don't know Arthur, he's a great resource, really great keeper. So if you have any questions, or feel free to reach out. So the scientific name, they call it the Varroa destructor mite, so amply named. The mites have done a lot of damage. They're not native to the Apis mellifera, they're native to Apis cerana. It's an Asian honeybee. So the first found in 1963 on imported Apis mellifera counties in Hong Kong and Singapore. They came to North America in 1979, they started in Maryland, and then later in 1987 began to be seen in Wisconsin and Florida. Largely, I think, due to the blueberries and then the citrus pollination. I think that's where you kind of see that in those two states. And then they spread from there. So I know Australia had their first kind of outbreak this year in a few zones, and they went pretty nuclear, just started burning everyone's equipment, hives, and big radius. And I don't think it kind of slowed them down. So once they kind of get there and get embedded into the population, they get kicked off and soar, and then you have the drift and kind of everywhere. They're really hard to rein in. So how does the mite cycle work? So the female mite is attached to the bee, typically like in between their little folds. You can see how the bees kind of have folds in them, and they kind of get up underneath there. So they're hard to look. So when you're looking at your hive, you don't see any mites. That's pretty typical. They kind of hide. So once the larva hits things like day 5, day 6, they detach from the worker bees that are grooming and feeding the larva. And they run inside the cell and they hide behind the larva and into the bee brood in the bottom so that the bees can't physically see it. So they get behind there and hide. Once that food's eaten or gone within 60 hours of that being capped, it'll move up onto the pupa and it'll begin to lay eggs. It'll always start with a male egg, and then you'll see why here in a second. So the first egg it'll lay will be male. It'll lay 5 eggs within 60 hours, 1 being the male, and the other 3, 4, 5 are going to be female. They feed on the pupa until they reach sexual maturity about day 5 to day 8. Once that happens, that male will then mate with the 3, 4, 5 females that are with him inside of that cell. So everything takes place within that cell. And that's why it's really important for that male to be made first, so they can reach sexual maturity first and be able to mate with its sister more or less. So when the bees emerge, 1 mite, 1 egg, you got 4 or 5 mites coming out. So they grow exponentially. So that's why it's important to always be kind of monitoring and keep your mite levels in check and to make sure you know where you're at. What happens is the mites, when they feed on the larva, they inject a lot of different viruses and things that cause your bees to be sick and unhealthy. And then, if you only have a few sick or weak bees in the hive, it's not bad. But as the hive grows and you get the exponential growth, that virus really starts to kind of become overwhelming.
So is it really only one more if it's the drone?
Yeah, typically, because there's just not a lot of room. So this is what they look like. So if you're going to do a hard little PSH assessment on your purple-eyed pupa to look for mites, when you pull that purple-eyed pupa out, that's what you see. So what you see in the middle right there, that's the foundress mite. The mite that's kind of up on the top, that's probably going to be your male mite. It's the biggest and the most mature, and those other 2 white dots, those would be eggs that are going to be delivered. that thing on the side of the cell, that's mite food, right? So you might look through your hives, you might wash your hives, and you find no mites on your wash, but you look in your comb and it doesn't look good. You see all this white stuff up on towards the middle of on the comb inside, see all these little white specks. Well, that's mite fecal matter. So that's something to keep in mind when you're doing inspection on your hive. When you see that, that's from the mites. The pupa and any waste from the pupa will be on the bottom of the cell, that kind of yellowish stuff. So I don't know, like, does everyone kind of understand what you're seeing in the picture? If you have questions, stop me too. Everyone sees the upper left, that's that male mite at like 11 o'clock. We kind of have the 3, that's the founder's mite, and those other 2 balls of the other eggs, and then the 3 little mites. Yeah. So to handle mites, it's important to not be, you want to have like a holistic plan. They call it IPM, or integrated pest management. So you'll hear IPM talks around a lot, and that's what it stands for, the integrated pest management. You don't want to like keep doing the same treatment. You have a lot of people like all they use is I'm all in on Apivar. They got Apivar in their hives 24/7, 365. It's just Apivar. All they treat with formin. So for your hives, you want to kind of keep track and when you're treating with what. So maybe 1 year in the spring, you hit them with Apivar, in the fall you get formin, and then the winter you do some away vaping, and then carry that on in the spring. You come out of the spring, then you hit them with, I'm trying to think something else, but Apigard, right? The final. So there's a lot of different options. You want to make sure that you're varying the treatments because it'll be more, effective if you're doing that. If you're hitting them with just a single treatment all the time, there are some artificial mite treatments that the mites have become immune to. You haven't seen that with any of the acid things. We'll talk about that in a bit. You want to constantly be monitoring the mite population on a monthly basis. Just like everyone, we're all human. I'm a little lax myself. I just did my first set of mite washes this past weekend on my first day here, just to get a baseline. So I like to do my first ones typically in late May and early June. Late June this year for my first one, just extenuating circumstances. But now I have an idea. I write on the lid what the mite count is and the date. And then on the ones that are really high, I can intervene and do some treatment now to get that mite load back down representative, because I don't want drip to happen. I don't want those mites transferring within the apiary. I've got some really high mite hives. I don't want those mites to be moved across and make all my hives population go up. So that's one of the things you can do. There's a lot of different practices that you can take. Screen bottom board has been shown to help reduce the mites. Remove the drone brood. You can put a medium frame in your deep box. They'll drop drone brood on the bottom of that frame. You come to your hive and scrape that off, throw them up front. The animals will eat it, chickens will eat it, whatever. They'll kill the mites that are in that bottom of the brood. They have green drone frames or drone foundation you can put in. Anyone can figure out how to make the bees draw those every time. I want the secret, because I'll just keep giving the drone brood frame and paying you to do it. It's hard sometimes again to draw that drone brood frame. They actually had a little bit better luck putting them in supers for whatever reason. We'll draw them in there a little quicker than down in the box and the brood chamber. But that's one of the things you can do is you can take that drone brood, you can put that frame in, the queen can lay it up, wait for the cap, put it in your freezer and kill everything in there, including the mites. Some people like to kill them, like the chickens, peck them out, and eat them. I like the medium frame. I think Tom came up with that. You put a medium frame in that, especially if it's already drawn in your deep box. And on the bottom, I can send pictures, or I'll show you. I have pictures where they'll draw a perfect drone hole on the bottom of that baby.
I didn't come up with it. That's why we call it the Lavazza stuff.
Oh, well, so and then you can just have the external. You can just scrape it off, and then you don't have to worry about it. You're not wasting foundation, you're not wasting your comb, and they draw it really fast because they can work both sides. They don't have that foundation, so they can build the foam kind of at once. So they draw twice as fast with foundation.
So it's really important that you're doing that between 2 nicely drawn
Yeah.
deeps. Otherwise, they're gonna get a little nutty with that
Yeah.
cone.
They'll give you passos. And then there are people that are developing varroa sensitive hygienic stock. So the bees have the ability to know that the pupa that's sick and the larva give off a pheromone that the bees sense that they're sick, and they'll uncap it. And then that'll disrupt that mite reproduction cycle. Maybe the founder's mite runs out of the cell and never has a chance to lay the eggs, or only lays the male egg. Then there are other practices. They'll pull the pupa out or the larva out, throw it out in front of the hive with the mites attached to it, and that'll help keep the mite numbers in check. So there are ways that you can measure that. We don't talk about that in the presentation, but there's a Harville assay method where you pull the purple-eyed pupa out, you count 100 of purple-eyed pupa, and you count how many reproductive mites, because there are mites that are sterile, and the VSHBs know that they're sterile and they won't mess with them. And that mite will live and just die a natural death without ever reproducing. So when you can, you want to rotate the treatment of products. I was talking about that earlier, and consider the infestation dynamics. And they'll help reduce the resistance of the mites. What you don't want to do is create a bunch of mites resistant to all the treatments, because then, we don't really have anything we can do. You want to keep your mite infestation levels below that 5%, and that'll help. That'll keep the counties healthy, and especially help get them through winter. So a lot of times, I think sometimes that's one of the leading culprits. You have a lot of sick bees going in the winter loaded up with virus, because you kept them the mite loads really high when they made their overwintering bees, and they're just not healthy enough and strong enough to keep the hive going, in the winter.
That's why we're doing this presentation
It's prime
this
time.
month.
Yeah, it's prime time. Powdered sugar, I don't think it works. You'll hear, you can read about everything on the internet. Michael, or not Michael, Randy Aller, sorry, is really good at like doing a lot of trials and testing. Like whatever you do for a mite wash, I think he said you gotta multiply by like, with powdered sugar, you gotta multiply it by like 8 or 10, and that's your true mite level. In the colonies, what he just does with dog dish soap and water, which I find very effective. I might use that for quite a while. So if you do it, I mean, why not?
This is the sprinkle.
What's that?
That's the sprinkle.
Oh, gotcha.
Using the
Nothing
powdered
attached.
sugar to treat for
Gotcha. Okay, so what you do for the powdered sugar is you shake it on the 1 cup per deep hive body. You do it once a week. It makes the bees dirty with powdered sugar, and then that makes them groom more. So they're grooming each other, and part of that grooming process, they'll knock the mites off each other. I know Purdue has worked on what they call like a mite mauler, or like grooming behavior, where the bees sense the mites on other bees are running around and chew the mites' feet, so they're unable to hook on. So that powdered sugar is kind of a take on that. So when you do it, you cover the bees in between the frames pretty good with powdered sugar, and then they'll start to clean each other off. As a part of that, the mites will fall off.
So does that work, do you think?
I don't know, like, I've messed around with it a little bit, but I'm not gonna say it does or nothing. You'll have to try it and see.
So there's 2 things with that powdered sugar. One, you either need to have a sticky board at the bottom or a screen board.
So mites can fall
They
down
either fall all the way out, or they get caught on the sticky board, because otherwise they'll just climb right back up.
on the beat. Yeah.
You also have to keep in mind that the raw mite will be underneath that abdomen and underneath the layers in the abdomen, so I mean, they could,
Brush them off and knock
Yeah.
them out.
yeah, they could eat all the powdered sugar, but that mite's still stuck on there.
Yep. And some people have tried the small cell cone, you can do that, see, it's just the actual cells are a lot smaller. The thinking there is there's not enough room in the cell with the being treated from the mite to there. So there's a lot of scholarly research on all these topics. I recommend that if you're interested in that, to use Google Flume and do some reading about it. But so how do we monitor for mites? As Tom just mentioned, the sticky board, those political signs you see for gold, whatever, those things work pretty good. Cover them with some Crisco and slide them in there. That'll definitely help. It'll catch them when Crisco's sticking up and they'll stick. You can use a pupa inspection, that's what I was talking about earlier, with the Harbor SA. You pull a dark cap frame of purple eye pupa, a pair of tweezers and the lighted magnifying thing, like, the ladies use to do their eyebrows or whatever. And you start pulling those pupa out, count them to see how many reproductive mites are in 100 cells. You find one, then you do another 100, and then keep days for how many cells, how many mites in there. The sugar shake, sugar roll, that's where I got confused. You can take these and cover with powdered sugar and measure the mites that have fallen off. And then you can use alcohol and or like a Dawn dish soap wash. I use the knockoff Dawn, because why not? And it works really well.
How much Dawn to how much water?
I put like probably 2 or 3 drops, like in the Varroa mite checker, there's a line for where to put the water. And there's another line on the lid. I fill it to that water line and put a few drops of Dawn. Excuse me. It's important when you're doing that, Kathleen.
When you do that soap wash, how do you keep it from falling out?
You don't shake.
You just swirl it.
Yeah, Kim is an expert. Kim though is like an expert. She was my wife. She was my wife. My wife's swirling. So you want to swirl them around. You don't want to shake them there. You will get a little bit of foam, but you let it sit for a second or two. That foam will rise up and the mites will fall down. You'll get a real clear benefit. If you, Kim can maybe chime in here. If you've got a problem with mites, it's obvious, right?
Right.
I mean, like the two hives I had that were really had high mite loads, like after this really look at the bottom, it's just mites everywhere. The other ones you're like, is that a stinger? Is that a piece of wax? You know, it's very evident with doing the mite wash. Now, Randy Gallagher's a big fan of doing them twice. So wash them twice. So wash them, pound them, discard, new soap, new water, new alcohol, and do it again. Instead of using isopropyl alcohol, can be expensive. You can use like the windshield washing fluid. It's a lot more reasonable price. So you can use that. That'll definitely work.
So that's where the soap wash came from. Is Randy's got some pretty interesting research on that where he showed that the alcohol windshield washer fluid isn't enough.
Yep.
And a lot of times they don't detach. So, cause I was a big proponent of the windshield washer fluid.
Yep, that's why I switched to the Dawn was great. But I mean, I don't want to tell you not to do it. And I think that's why he was doing it twice with the alcohol. I think the second one you get more. Same thing, I've rewashed, like if I have one that's like 0 to 1, sometimes I'll rewash it because I know that there's more mites than that. I see a lot of times, there's no mites in my hive. There's mites. There's definitely mites in my hive. It's sample here. I don't want to get in. And I'm an actuary in my training. I don't want to get in.
You ever combine alcohol and soap in one
No.
wash?
I haven't. I just keep a 5, like when it gets warm, especially now, I keep a 5-gallon bucket of water in my truck because it's got a bit like, you know, you use your smoke and you don't like, you know, you can help calm that down and not be out there trying to stomp on it. And I like to be able to wash my hands and rinse my face off. And then if I want to do mite washes, I dip like I said, a 5-gallon bucket with a lid with water all the time now. And then I just keep them on this soap and like a Rubbermaid thing with all my beekeeping essentials. And then if I wanted to wash, I can do it. So it's to me that's been a very easy and very accurate method. You know, it's very clear when you have an issue and you don't have an issue.
So the mite watcher kits, I think John sells them for like, they're super cheap, like $12 maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
So like what I do is I have about a half dozen of them.
Yeah.
And I'll do like a pallet of hives at a time, so it's 4 hives. So by the time I'm done putting everybody back together and putting the lids on there, the foam is settled out.
Yep.
It works pretty well.
Yeah, I was just working the hives. Kim was doing the swirling and checking, and so if you have someone that can help you, it's always a positive. I'm always looking for help, so you know, if anyone wants to come learn how to do mite washing, you know, hit me up. I'll take slave labor at any time. I won't make you live.
I wondered why you called me.
I know. I set her up in a beautiful spot in the shade in a lawn chair. I'm offering her food drinks, so she, you know, don't let her get.
No.
I don't think so. All in beekeeping, right? So, you know, yeah.
I just saw alcohol on the last slide.
I know, right?
So Mike, when you're doing that, are you checking and treating hives individually or by apiary?
For me, if like there's only like a small percentage of the hives that are a problem, I'll just treat those hives, but then I'm gonna monitor them all again in a month and check. And then if my overall levels have gone up, I'll treat the whole apiary.
I think that's coming up on the slide, right?
No, it should be, I think, yeah, I'm not familiar with the slide. So we talked a little bit about sticky boards. They sell them to have a nice grid with like A, B, C, and then 1, 2, 3, and then each one of those represents like a surface area. Then you count the mites in that, and there's some point, you know, you use to get your overall mite load based on that. So you don't have to do like the whole thing, you can randomly sample some of the grids that it's designed to do. You can also, like I said, you can use like any type of like cardboard, anything that's kind of heavy and smear crystal on it and slide that in, and then the mites will stick to it. You can spray with cooking oil, you know, you can use Pam, I just use Crisco. You want to put it there for 3-4 days, then count the mites. The mites are naturally dying, the bees are naturally falling off the bees at any time anyway. So that's where you can just slide a sticky board in without doing any type of treatment, any powdered sugar or anything, and then pull that sticky board out, and then you'll get some idea of what your mite is. I think they found that it's not very accurate, but they do have some statistics out there on a 24-hour average. If you have an 8 frame or less, you should find 20, 9+ frames, 40, and then there's different treatment levels that go along with that. But it's definitely one of the least effective methods for monitoring the mites. Ants can remove the mites, bees can remove the mites out of the hive, so you know there's might be some issues with getting the accuracy. I think some people have done some like they've washed like the whole hive, 300 at a time to see like how accurate is this the percentage of volume of the bees. And they tended to find that was pretty accurate, so they just gotta sacrifice the hives for science. Any questions on sticky boards? So the PIBA inspection, you can do this anytime, like, when you're working your hives and you pull a frame up and you got that drone put on the bottom and it rips apart. You gotta be quick. If you look at it and start looking for mites, you'll see it. If you wait too long, they'll crawl behind you and you'll get out of sight. So as soon as that drone group tears apart anywhere you're at, you look at it right away, you'll see little red specks running around. We have some pictures coming up. So you can see what you're kind of looking for. Or you can just pop the caps off drone group and pull the people off, look in there and see what's in there. But typically, if you've got vertical with drone group in there, you can break that apart and look for lights. You get an eyeball, like you'll know, like when you break that brood open, if you don't see a mite or maybe one mite, your infestation's low. If you break it open, you see 30 mites, your infestation is high. A lot of it's just kind of common sense and just being observant. But you don't have much time when you break that, when you break that comb open, when the mites went high. So you have to be pretty vigilant with the that. So, especially like in the spring, when you're getting started, a lot of times, you're just getting the first drone group going. Your mite levels are pretty low anyway, so you'll kind of concentrate on that drone group. So that'll give you an idea of what your mite levels like.
Hey, Tom, are you watching the chat?
The sugar shaped roll, it is non-lethal. I think a lot of people kind of go to that in the method. I don't want to say I don't care about my bees, but right now, this time of year, a lot of bees die every day just from part of the natural life cycle. And when you're doing the sampling with like the soap water wash, you are killing the bees, but to me, it's like they're making like a sacrifice for the overall good of the hive, right? So, but this is a non-lethal way to do it. It's 2 tablespoons of powdered sugar, 300 bees. You can use the same mite monitor wash lid with a line and get your measurement and use it to do powdered sugar shake too. So you can't use that tool for both methods. And you shake onto a plate and spray with water to dissolve the sugar and you count the mites. You can add an additional tablespoon of sugar, shake it over for 30 seconds and re-shake on the plate. And that a double sugar shake to improve the accuracy, just like the double wash, which is more opportunity to dislodge the mite, because you are trying to dislodge that mite. So, you can do 2 washes or 2 shakes, you're gonna see, you typically see, marginal add the mite. Maybe, if you do either one of these methods, the first time you might get 3, and then you do it again, you might get maybe 1 more. If you got like 10 mites, you do a second time, you might get 3 or 4. So, you will see like a little bit of a mite. To me, this is messy and other like the Dawn method, like cleaning, and it's not like, but I'm just partial to the one, but I'm not saying not to do this one. And there is a multiplier I think you're supposed to use on the sugar shaped roll. I couldn't find it, but we read already stuff that you couldn't get there. So this is my favorite, the alcohol and the soap wash. Rubbing alcohol, you can. Another thing like red heat, that's 99% isopropyl alcohol. So you can get that on sale really cheap. If you can reuse it, like you can pour the alcohol through a screen into another cup to get the mites out and all the stuff, and then pour it back in and just keep using that alcohol. So that's something to keep in mind. You don't have to waste it. When it's open water, I just throw it out every time, wash it all out, and reuse it. You want to swirl 1 to 2 minutes to kill the bee and mites and get them to dislodge. Typically, I'll do 2 minutes. And then the nice thing about that cup, you just kind of hold it up and look, and you'll see the mites in the bottom. I should have taken pictures this weekend. I think I've got one coming back. And you can do a double wash. You can wash it 2 times, and that'll increase your accuracy. That's where the last step is. You repeat the steps, do it twice, and you get a better result. Yeah, that's what it looks like. That's a problem. When you see that, that's when you got mite infestation. Things that are maybe too high. That's what I was saying. It's very obvious when you do the wash, you have problems. A lot of times, like when you're washing mine, like there'd be 1 or 2 here and there. It's just how it works. 2 of them look like that. But those 2, now been treated. So
that container, is that part of the kit you were talking about?
yeah, that is the kit. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. You take the lid, the yellow lid, and it has 2 lines, and then 1 for 100, 1 for 300 bees. And you like scrape it down, make sure you find the clean, or check the frame. Washer. I roll the dice after. I mean, I look, but I'm like, the easiest way to do it is actually to take the lid, flip it upside down, and drag it backwards on the frame, and it'll fall in there. And then there's a line in there. You just keep doing that until you get it full. I like to do a couple frames, you typically open brood frames, because the mites tend to go towards like saw that open brood. Move the bee in there, because they want to get down in there to remove the bees. So I'll sample from a couple random open brood frames, and if I have a drone frame that's open or a bunch of drones, I'll try to get some of the drones in there too.
So it's kind of hard to see, but so there's a container and then there's like a little basket inside of here. So the basket has a flat side that you can take and just run down the frame with the bees in it. It took me a little while to get it right,
Yeah,
but once you do, it, Arthur's like a master of it.
yes, yeah.
He just like looks at him
I
like,
use the lid and stuff, so yeah, there's you can either way. Yeah, I'm great at that, that's Arthur. So how many hives should I sample? If you have a smaller apiary and you have less than 10 colonies, you want to sample them all. If you have over 10, you want to do at least 80% typically, 70–80%. My apiary I washed, I had 13, I did 8 of the 13. The reason I did the other 2 is because I use those with the skateboards, and they have like 40 supers that I run jack with, so pure laziness. Typically, I will wash all the hives at one point throughout the year, just to make sure I know what's going on with that hive. And I can tell, like, most of the time, when she was washing, I could tell looking at the frames, those 2 that had the hind white lineage was clear. I could see the white people pattern and the open cells and just diverged bees, and a lot spottier brood pattern. The hives just weren't as productive. The honey production had really fallen off from what it had been earlier, so I could tell that might really there's no point. So that would be once you get a feel for and you wash the hive and do the inspections, you start to see that correlation about overall health of the hive, and then it might know. So another thing, that yeah, you can talk about after. For threshold, this one's small, little eye check here for me. So 2% or less, not a problem. You want to stay on top of the mites all the time. I know I say that a lot, but that's where you want to make sure like you're always checking and always knowing what's going on in the hives. 2 to 3 to 5%, like those aren't it's not a big jump as fast as the mites we use. So that's why you want to keep that 2%. And I'm going to monitor them again. I'll monitor them in 3–4 weeks. So like 2.5 brood cycles basically, and that'll be a chance for that mite population to really get high. And if that's the case, I want to get it low.
So we got an online question from Nick Reeder. In a 2 deep brood chamber, should I wash twice, once per deep?
Just once. There should be pretty good one within that.
And that percentage is based on treatment.
It is. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, we were washing mine, right? And there were only the 2 that had tons of mites. All the other ones were below the 2% threshold.
So that picture we had, what was that percentage?
I'm guessing I didn't count them. I'm guessing those were probably 25 or 30 mites. That would have been 7. I mean, if we want to count 1, 2, 3, 4,
A bunch.
of them. So, yeah, it's way.
I'd say there's probably 30. Really.
Yeah, so that's probably, I was gonna say 8–10% would be what that was. But if you see that and you wash your beef, you got problems.
You knew that was high, that problems on ahead of time.
That wasn't mine. I
Oh,
just
okay.
found that as a random,
Oh, okay.
a random picture. I got the deck check prior to doing it. Yeah.
So do you like pull on your supers and start treating at that point, or do you wait till that?
There are treatments you can use with the super on,
Okay.
so you can use that. We can talk about that later.
Okay.
But there are things that you can use with the super on, the top guard, format, where you can use oil bait. So you can use it.
Giving you a hand.
No. They'll stay down below and hang out. So, I mean, 3% is the next, and that's where you're starting, the bees get sick and the virus will slow the bees progress down. They won't be as productive and the virus will start to, kind of go up. You can treat after the honey supers are pulled in August. That's pretty typical. Same thing with the 2%. You're almost always going to have to treat. That's one thing to get in mind. If you're at 5% or more, you're at the risk of the colony collapsing. So you have to take pretty swift and immediate action. You want to treat immediately, and then you want to do another follow-up monitoring throughout the 4th time, and you're probably gonna have to treat them again before fall just to make sure. So something to keep in mind. That 5%, like that one wash, that's bad. You want to make sure you're hammering them right away. So how do we want to treat? There's a lot of options. When you're above that 5% threshold, that's when you definitely want to be pretty aggressive and treat pretty hard. When, as a preventative measure, you can use some of the other IPM strategies, that's where you're using drone brood or cycling brood out, giving brood breaks, there's other things you can do that aren't chemically based that keep the mites lower. Introducing BSA stock can help keep your mites in check. Using medication when you don't need it, so if you're not above that threshold, you start having diminishing returns and risk of these, the mites becoming immune to the treatment, especially when you're going to little weight theory. So if you're leaving Apgar strips all the time, like that's how the first set of treatments lost their efficacy. When the commercial guys are just using them constantly, they keep the mites low, and the mites became immune to them. So when they had to stop using those treatments, they would come off the market, like Apistan, and before my. So when you do reach your thresholds, I talked about this earlier, you want to rotate the treatments that you're using, and you want to follow directions, and you want to, use them as prescribed or as prescribed. You don't want to, leave Apgar strips in all the time, or you don't want to. The Formic Pro just kind of turns it together. That's a little bit different, but the strips that are like that have the diminishing returns, like you want to make sure if it says treat for 12 days. I know everyone's got lives, but you don't want to leave them there for 30. Try to get them out between that 12, 15 days. Because the treatment gets diluted, and then that's where the past like start to develop. Make sure you read the labels. A lot of them are temperature sensitive. Talk about those now. So there are archicides, I don't know how to say that very well, but they're synthetically produced. That's going to be your Apgar, your Apistan, and your check mite. There are a few things that use essential oils. That's going to be your Apagard and your Apgar, Apple Light Wear. Sorry. And then some of the more organic influence treatments are the different acids. So you've got formic acid, oxalic acid, and beta acids. So that the beta acids are hot guard and folate or oxalic acid, and then you'll hear either Vitaway quick strips and formic. Those would be your three kind of base, chemical based treatment. So the synthetics, the Apgar, the treatment is 42 to 56 days in length. It's 95% effective up to you, and you don't want to use that more than 2 times a year. So those are like the white farm strips that you have in the frame. Now the treatment period is pretty long. Part of that is it doesn't kill the mites that are behind. None of these kill the mites that are behind the cat's brood. So they have to be in there a long time so that as the brood cycles out and the mites emerge, that they can be exposed to it. That's why you're going to see Apistan and Checkmate. The Checkmate, they're all at 42 to 56. Brood cycle, how many days? 21, right? So if you have 2 times 21, that's typically like, going to get all like a cycle through all your phone basically. Also, you don't want to use more than 2 times a year. Apistan, you got to have temperature above 50 degrees. With given temperatures these days, not an issue. But none of these can use with supersonic because they're synthetic minus on the baseline, and they can transfer the lapse and the secret. So none of these are allowed to be used with the acid. Essential oils. So thymol is actually really good at killing mites. I don't know if you guys know what it smells like, but it's got a real distinct, pretty potent smell. It smells nice actually. The Apagard, it's just thymol like a gel. They say 75 to 95% effective, and it definitely goes up in efficacy as it gets hotter because it vaporizes more, like just like when it gets warm, it's more public, it gives off more smell. It's also effective against tracheal mites. You can use it when it gets hot. It's 2 14-day treatments. So you put like a little postcard down, you got the syringe, you squirt it out, you use the bucket, or they have like little containers, you just put the lid off and set it down. A lot of people like to use like a 2-inch or inch feeding shim to give the chance to have a little bit of circulation of air. Apgar Life, the most active is the thymol, but it has camphor, menthol, and elliptic oil with y'all. It's a little bit less effective, and you can't use it in a broader temperature range. It's 3 treatments, 7 to 10 days, and then a 3rd treatment for 12. Whereas like the Apgar is 2 14-day treatments. So all these do require quite a bit of length and time in the treatment again because they don't impact food that's behind, the mites that are behind cat food. So your acid, so your formic acid or your Vitaway quick strip, the treatment's 60 to or that. Okay, so sorry, I didn't know this part. 60 to 98% effective. You have to be careful if you put the both the strips on it, like a double beat or a single beat, and it gets real hot, a lot of times people have problem from brood dying and queens being killed. So it's something to keep in mind when it's real hot. You use 2 strips for 14 days, or you can use 1 strip for 10 days and a second strip for 10 days. You can do like kind of blast them if your levels are really high by putting 2 strips on at once, or you can kind of slow trickle them, 2 1-strip treatments spread out. Oxalic acid, formic will kill the mites behind the cabinet. So that's something to keep in mind. So that's why the treatment's blocked. So it's a pretty aggressive treatment. Yeah, it does work. It's definitely pretty effective. I know John Hill's a big fan of it, and a lot of people are big fans of it. It smells pretty potent. One of the things you can do to lower the queens getting killed, it's that first 2 days when you first put them in, like it's a pretty pungent. You're standing down when to get lit, it's like you'll know that. You can like cut the package in such a way that the bottom, like we just cut the package kind of in half, and we put each strip with the like the package on the bottom, so only the top, it reduces like the exposure. I know Randy Oliver was doing some different stuff, like seeing how much to expose, and then he was weighing them to see how much was evaporating per day, to see like, can I, it's a good treatment, but can I have it so it doesn't spike so high? It kind of goes up and then lasts a little bit longer to stretch the treatment out. So he's had some good luck with that. You try to just cut the ends off them, so it's just open and fully covered, and it didn't work. So, like I like a lot of the stuff he does. I read quite a bit of his stuff, and there's a lot of good information online. Just kind of be careful on some of this stuff. You can use oxalic acid, so you can dribble it with a little bit of glycerin and water, or you can vaporize it. The thing about that is, like the other treatments, it'll only kill mites that are exposed and not that aren't capped. So like this time of year, we get tons and tons of capped brood. You're only going to get a real small kill rate on the mite. And even if you do it like every 5 days for however long, the treatment just isn't effective as when the bees are completely clustered in broodless. I prefer to use it in the spring or the fall when the bees are low brood count and then clusters. I think it's very effective then. So there's some other people doing some research on different ways to use oxalic acid. Hopefully that's something that will come to the market at some point. I think there's a lot of promise there. Top guard, the stuff, I mean, it works really well. It's like cardboard strips covered in like this food. So like you gotta have gloves, and like if you're gonna hot guard your stuff, like it helps to have like 2 people, 4 people like pulling boxes and getting everything ready, and 1 person just can goop all over them. The more that group you have on the cardboard strips, the better it works. It's a 30-day treatment period. I would also do just like 1 more treatment actually. I think there's no temperature restrictions. You can't use it this time of year. Things approved to use. So I text Jim, we'll with our inspector just to make sure you know all the kind of change that time. So something to keep in mind.
Does the hot card get under through?
No, that's why the treatment period is 30 days. And that's why I would do a substitute. So there are just some other practices that you can, kind of use for this viruses and diseases. High tools are cheap. You buy 1 for every apiary. You have 1 for the apiaries. That way you're not taking, like, you have an apiary that has something happen, take the same high tool and go to the next hive at another location and spread it. Just leave it there. You can also use like bleach, alcohol, and water. Bleach is actually pretty good to get focus off your high tool, but don't leave it too long because they have like foam kind of finish and leave that off. Wear disposable gloves. That helps the bees aren't stinging on the gloves. Good nitrile gloves. I found these would have like little perforations. They have really good grip. I love the things. They're thick. They're like 8 millimeters, so I can they don't tear all the time. You know the orange ones? Yeah. You get orange ones are purple, even the purple and black too. But yeah, they're great.
Where do you get them at?
Amazon or anything. Okay. Right. I think I asked you my card. Maybe I can show you. But that's a couple things. You don't get that propolis off your hands, and then it's nice. Like I just had that bucket of water. I'm still kind of rinse my gloves off and wash them if they get gunk on them, and they stay nice. And then position your hives to reduce drifting as much as possible, especially with mites. Like you could have 1 hive that's kicking off all these mites, and they're riding and spread throughout your whole apiary. So that's important as well. Wet drift is a thing. Your neighbors aren't treating. They're not being responsible, and they have real high mite loads. You're gonna have mites too, so just make sure you know what's happening. These are just some other topics. We don't have anything to you know, so things like, we talk about nutrition, genetics, small hive beetles. Nosema, I think Nosema gets a lot more hives than people give it credit for. I think everyone blames it on points. I think that February, March, death of a hive is what we look. But that's something to keep in mind, you know, as you guys are preparing what things to do for the winter. Yeah.
So if you have a hive die out, during the winter, the mites. And you empty out that hive and stuff in the spring, do all those mites die along with the bees?
Yeah, they're parasitic.
Okay,
Yep.
so
That's
they're
why
not-
freezing the drone grew.
Yeah, so they're not hanging out.
Yeah, so there's some picture, the picture on the far left is like a bee with just a mite walking on it. That's pretty rare to see that. It's pretty rare to see it running around as well. But you will see it from time to time. That's what cold will look like in a like, that's a really bad mite infestation. If you see that hive's dead. Let's see all that white fecal matter. That glowing white up there, that's mite food. So that's something that you can do a visual inspection, and go, I've got a very high mite. That's a sick frame of bees that's infested. And if you uncap drone larva and it looks like that picture, you got problems. Yeah. Yep. So those are just some visual cues that kind of, you know, that you can use when you're working your hives. I wouldn't expect at like a, you know, say you're at 2% or 5% or 3% mite loads. And you gotta think like there's, can't remember how many, 9,840 cells on the side of a piece of foundation. So if you think 2% of that, 180 cells. So to catch one of those and, you know, catch that food not being clean, because they'll need to clean it out. So to catch that can be a little bit rare. So the fact that you are seeing it, I would say that you probably have a higher mite load than you think. So it's something to keep in mind when you do visual inspection. And when you see that on the right, and you break that drone root open, okay, you got problems. Really.
So I think one thing that I just learned on Formic is that you can have it on with your super, but you're supposed to give it 10 days after treatment to pull your super.
Gotta air out.
Well, but you put it on for like, okay, if it's,
14 days.
14
So you got-
days, so in a sense.
So then you gotta wait till,
And
so
pull-
24 days.
When you pull the strips out, 10 days after that, you can then pull your own.
So you said with the synthetic, don't use it when you have super on,
You can't use it.
but the essential oils you can.
You can't use the thymol base. You wouldn't want to use anything to make honey taste like garbage. Yeah,
So really none of these you could use if you have super on.
you can use you can use oxalic acid vaporization, you can use the hot guard, and then you can use Formin Pro. For my winter strips.
So today. I found one of them things.
Just one,
What would you recommend?
I'd wash and take it from there. I would do it.
Okay, so I got a problem. I know I got a problem.
Well, you may not have a problem. That's why they wash.
I'm getting to, what would you do?
I do a mic wash.
And you found you still had a problem. You're gonna use Formin. What would you recommend?
Potentially, depending on the temperature forecast.
With the 90-degree temperature
And
thing?
I use top guard.
Formic's pretty risky right now, with 90s coming off.
But-
You're supposed to have 3 days below 85. When you start with it, otherwise you can smoke your clean.
And if it's this bad, you're not gonna make it anyhow.
You can just wait, you know, a couple weeks and then treat them when the temperature comes down. No, it's more like what you're trying to do. So if you think about like this general health of your bees, the big thing is having health, like the bees that make the winter bees being healthy, so that your winter bees are healthy. Right? What you're doing now by having the high light load is you're reducing how much honey and how much food you're producing. So you want to make sure that when the bees are making their winter bees, that everything is healthy. So that they're healthy, so you have a better chance of getting. Now, like, I would treat, like I treat two today because they had really high mite levels. They were packages and they were just mite bombs. I didn't want them to drift. I wanted to take care of it right away. And I'm getting rid of the queens no matter what. So if I lose the queens, I don't care. right? I'm just gonna graft and, you know, set queens on them if they die. So that's a little bit of a different perspective than maybe some other people that with the queen issue. Not that I want to see the queen go, but to me, it's more important to get rid of the mites. I'll worry about the queen and let it make the queen better.
Even, and not just because we sell queens, but like, even if you smoke the queen at $35, that beats a package of bees at $135, right? So if you get your bees strong right now, you're still way early.
Yep.
You can still recover and build that hive strong for winter.
That's
Still
what
got time, you got a month or two to be able to do that. That's the tricky bit, is make sure you're kind of catching what Mike said there is. We're prepping for winter like next month, like in 3 weeks, 2-3 weeks, it's game time. To prep for winter, which is hard to believe when it's 90 degrees out and all that stuff, but you gotta go backwards with your dates. So look at when the frost date is, which is like the second week of October. Then you dial back 3 cycles of bees, which is 9 weeks. That puts you into early August, late for
So you want the bees that they're being produced now that can come out with lower mite loads so that they can make healthy bees for the winter bees, right?
So you want to be
So
clean.
you want to be clean as soon as possible.
You want to be clean for that for a number of reasons.
Yep.
Number one, you want to knock that virus and bacteria load down that's coming from those mites, as well as you just want a strong hive so that they're making tons of bees.
Yep.
To be good and healthy for the winter. It may be a fall goal.
Yeah.
But you don't necessarily have to kill them in one fell swoop. Like, you're probably not gonna kill them all in one fell swoop. Nothing up there said 100%.
That's right. That was gonna be my next question, especially for Mr. Mash back there. Sorry. So you're not gonna get rid of all of them. So what's a good equilibrium?
Less than 2%.
Less than 2%?
1-2%. Yep. Yeah.
So when you're saying 2%, are we back
Six
to?
out of 3. I
So
mean,
Mike,
you watched with me, right? We had,
Yeah.
they were all 1, 2, and 4, except for 2 hives. We're like, I stopped counting. I'm like, when I look at the thing, I don't really count. I look at it. Like, you know, you have a problem. I know that sounds like backwards, right? For someone that's precise and an actuary, like, when you look at the bottom of the cup, it looks like that, like, you don't even think, it's just like, I have no tolerance. I just go through it. Like, I'm not playing around. Like, well, they're that bad because if you wait, that maybe you watch that at 15 in 3 weeks, it might watch it at 30, and then you've got all that drip, and I've got all these hives around it, and I don't want to contaminate these mites. I want to kill them. I'm just game over. Game over. And those queens will be gone too, so I'll be replacing those queens ASAP.
So the other important part about doing that wash too, is how do you know how effective your treatment was?
Yeah,
That's why you want to do that base wash as well.
correct.
You
That's,
wanna know if
that's
it's-
exactly, that's what I was saying. Like, I'm setting my base levels. Right, I'm gonna base level and monitor. The ones that I wash that are really high, I'll wait for the treatment to go. I'll give them 20 days or 2-3 weeks, and I'll wash them again. And if I'm still not low enough, I'm gonna treat them again. Or I'm gonna break it up, right? That's the other option. I can take all that cat brood out, put them in the splits, and then treat the hive with only open brood. That'll be more like effective kill rate, and re-clean them all and make splits out. That's another option. So there's a lot of times, like, you have people that are very successful with the chemical-free beekeeping. That's what they're doing. They're constantly inducing brood rates, so the mites don't have the ability to, in that hive, simply producing. They're taking them and putting them all over, kind of spreading the mites out.
So the important part to catch, because it just kind of zipped through a lot of stuff there. So when he's making those splits, he's putting a queen cell in there, and that queen cell is gonna take a week or two before she gets established, right, and starts laying. But then it's 3 weeks before that egg emerges, right? So that gives you time to clear
Yep.
a lot of that brood that's in your hive. Fantastic time to hit them with OA vaporization.
Yep.
And get a nice kill on that hive and get them down low. So that's all, it's the big master plan of everything, and a lot of this isn't just, hey, what do you do, what do you do, what do you do? It's understanding what he does for his situation.
Yep.
And why, and how he's tweaked that year after year after year. Because we all make a lot of mistakes,
Oh, yeah.
and like, the key is learning from your mistake each time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the brood break, that's like, it's real popular like in France, and if you ever watch that Richard Knoll, like the Bees and Brittany guy, Like he'll cage all his queens in like July. We'll put them in like these cages that, because these all wax foundation, they're like clamps on the wires, and he'll put the queen in there. And he'll wait like 3 weeks and we'll start hammering away 4 or 5 times. And then he'll let that queen go. So he's introducing that broodless, all the mites, there's nowhere to hide, right? There's nowhere to run. They're all exposed. And then the OA is a lot more effective. We also
That's
had
the
a lot
only
of-
way sector.
Yeah, correct.
It has to have contact with the mite, because of the way the acid works, it deteriorates the shell of that mite.
Yeah.
So Mike, as a new beekeeper, you've advised me not to do a wash yet, not to do a treatment.
Well,
yet, because my
here's-
numbers are so.
Well, yeah, and you have that
Right.
one that's queenless, right?
Right.
You got a long fruit break in that one, and the other one was queenless a long time. It'll be
So,
another fruit break.
so what's my next step? Is it
Just
just wait
monitoring.
till OA?
No, I would just wait. We'll wash them in like a couple weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we want to wait for that one queen to get made and come back and we can face level.
Have you any problems? They don't like me.
I know. You know, right?
So would you recommend one supplier over another for this type of stuff, the acid, do you like one online that you buy all your stuff from, where you get?
I just buy everything I can, from John, you know, got info. He's got
I
the,
didn't know if he had it or not.
yeah, he has, he's a big, foreman guy. I mean, he has like a room this big, it seems like full of pallets of foreman. I don't think he has hot guard. I know he got the tub, I've been begging him for a while, to get the tub, the apron guard. He also had the individual apron guard, so if you only have a few hives, they're like little single serving things, you just like pull the lid off and put them on there. I think that's pretty slick. If you've ever used them, they smell really good, they smell like if you like are diffusing essential oils. You know, but that smell will linger on your home and everything too, that's why you can't use it. I should do it sometimes just to see what it's like, but yeah. And then there's only one oxalic acid that's approved to use on hives from like one manufacturer. But like if you use the inner tube webs, there's, is it like Florida, I mean, not that I would know. There's like this Florida laboratory, it's like
Something
99.999.
certified organic.
Yeah, and certified organic. So, yeah, and then John has like the different vaporization things, I think, does it call that one?
They will want stuff.
Okay. I've got like a pro vape too and a generator, that's what I use, so like one of those little $100 2-stroke generators. And I pour and a bunch of silicone cups, I just measure it, you can use 3 grams per box. No way, so that's, I can't remember, it's a half a tablespoon or something, I don't remember. I put them in all the cups and line them up, block all the entrances, I already have holes drilled on like the sides and the backs of all my baseboards. I stick like a golf key or something in there, get all those all pulled out, and I just go down and vaporize the whole kind of line, you know, and then move everything over and do the next one. Takes a little bit of time, but it can be very efficient or very effective. Like if you put a sticky board down and they're clustered and there's no broom, you'll see a really big light drop that first couple of days. But then it's over, right? That's the problem. It's got to make contact and it doesn't last. That's where those other treatments that are in the 40 or whatever day treatments, they're in there giving off that chemical that whole time. So that brood is cycling, even though they have to be in contact with it, they're making that contact and the mites are dead.
Like,
I mean, how old?
during the prostate, like, when's the last time you left the hive? When's the last time?
I'll yeah, last time I walked in August. But then I'll OA maybe in like probably in November, December, and January. Yeah, we could OA maybe in the winter. Because you're clustered in broodless. Yeah, there's some temperature stuff, you're gonna get those warmer days. You don't want to be flying, but you don't want to be like so cold. I think it's like 40 to 45.
There's a temperature too that it has to for the baking.
That even work, yeah, I think it's 40 to 45. I don't remember, I always have to Google it every year.
That basically what you got when you wash in August, or is that?
No, I'll do all of it.
So you-
I'll just
draw
go through it. Yeah.
But the same lab, wash in August.
Yeah.
You know, it's at that 5, you're not gonna wait
No, I'll treat it
No,
right away.
winter.
No,
You're gonna do it
Right away.
winter.
yeah, and
And then you're still getting.
if it's high in August. Say I like, it's August 10th or whatever, I go out and I check I've got one that's at really high. I'm gonna treat that high right away. And then I'm gonna come back and I will re-wash these again that way in September, maybe in early October, to make sure that they stay there. So I wanna make sure that they're. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's a good question.
Hey, Mike, do you want to maybe talk about that? I can take you back to that slide. And maybe explain how that fits into the bee life cycle. The dates, like the.
Is it the treatment one?
Where,
Yeah. So which part you want to, what do you want to just cover right now?
well, I guess the part that's important to remember is like so your 3 days as an egg, 6 days as a larva.
Yeah.
And then the remainder as pupa, so it's understanding when you're looking at your frames. How old everything is
Oh,
as to when your treatments are gonna work
Sure.
on that stuff. I think that's the whole key to success on this with treatments.
Yeah, the different treatment types. I mean, I think that's what becomes very important, right? So the treatment types that you're using that are in there a long time. You want to make sure that you get that full root cycle through. The stuff that you don't need to have. That, are really fast treatments, you want to make sure that you bruise this. And then. I guess I'm confused. You want to talk about, I'm sorry. Oh, it's fine.
So the acids are a longer treatment time,
One more time.
the acids you use for a longer treatment time.
The acids are typically quick treatment. It's like oxalic and formin. They're only like, the formin is they call it a flash treatment, is what I've heard it referred to before, because it'll kill the mites behind the capping. So you don't have to worry about the life cycle and what's going on with where your brood's at. You can throw that formic on and it's gonna nuke the mites there, no matter where they're at. With the hop guard and the hop guard, it's like a slime and on that cardboard and it's sticky and nasty in there for a long time. And the bees keep spreading it around for like 30 to 40 days. So as that brood is cycling through and those mites are going in, hiding, and coming out, even if they don't get exposed that first time through, that second time through, they might, or maybe even a third. So you can go through a couple of brood cycles. That same mite can hide and not get exposed, but it's going to catch them at some point in that brood life cycle in their house. The oxalic only works for like an hour or two when it's digging around and through, making contact with the bees. After that, it kind of dissipates and evaporizes, kind of dissolves. Now, there will be some left residuals that can be passed around in the hive. So you'll see, like, if you watch the mite fall measurement, like it spikes really high, and then it drops really quick, and then it stays up for a couple of days, but then it goes to zero. So if you're going to use oxalic acid, if they're not clustered, if you want to have any efficacy, you have to continue to treat them over and over and over. There's been a lot of research done lately about the measurement of the doses, and they're finding that the 3 grams is insufficient to be effective, and it needs to be more like 5 or 6. So I'm hopeful that the powers that be will improve and increase in the amount of OE that you can apply per box to make it more efficient and more effective.
It was a really good talk. I think Sugar Decker's put on our Facebook page. We can post that one again. It was like Bob Bain,
That guy,
Jennifer Berry
yeah,
from UGA.
I was saying Florida, right? For Georgia.
The guy, I forget, she's from Georgia, Jennifer Berry. She's
Yeah.
like the Mike Queen. She's probably like number 2. Actually, she's probably number 1, but then you look at Samuel Ramsey because we kind of changed how we understand mites and where they're at and what they're doing on the bee to understand treatments and things like that. But Jennifer Berry has been preaching the mite deal for like 15, 20 years.
I think your question was kind of because the oxalic acid doesn't get underneath the cappings. So Mike, how often, so you treat, then 5 days later treat again, what you're saying over and over?
Yeah, like there are people that have tried every 3 days, 5 days for 4 weeks, 3 weeks, and it does work pretty well, but it doesn't have the good of a kill rate as when you're using it for this purpose. So you can treat it, and people treat it once a week for 5 weeks, they treat it every 5 days for however long, and it's still not as effective as when they're completely doing this.
That's another part of that talk. It goes on, like, it's
Yeah.
really long, it's like three parts, I think.
Yeah, it's great.
And they're at least an hour, hour and a half each, so it's like, they dig in deep. I mean, they
Yep.
explain it and they start getting into, I think there's another one, like Keenan Reynolds maybe, with that.
He,
group.
yeah, because Cayman did a similar, he had like a test yard where he was testing all these mite treatments.
And they were
And
talking
he
about.
found the same thing, but he was more on the dosage. I think he said it was like at 6, he was starting to see,
Six.
at 6, he was starting to see issues with the brood, like brood health was deteriorating. But 5, I think 5 was the money number for what it should be. Part of that too, like, I don't remember 08 but there's cracks in the wood, there's everything else. So like you put 3 in there, you might only get 1.5. They're pushing it back out, pushing it out to the top. Like even if you have the hive pretty well sealed up, like they know like that stuff starts floating in there. They get, you hear like, and they'll start trying to like shove it back out. You can have like I'll stuff towels in the front, and you know, I'll stuff the towel in the inner cover. And like they'll still be pushing it out places, you know, they have little cracks to get ventilation just naturally, and they all know it's like, you can see it, they just turn it like, when you smoke or sometimes you puff smoke and all this goes back out. You're like, what the hell, you know, like they know. So they do the same thing with that OA rate. So that's why I think having the higher dosage and the more concentration, just get more in there helps because when they're pushing it out. You get more people.
One, because, they were literally like, some of the brains.
Yeah.
That had like captains or own.
Yeah.
Are those mites, if I have mites, like?
You might see some in there, you might not, right? That's just,
Are they stuck in that half grown?
they'd be in there, yeah. So when you break that open, you'd see like that picture with the larva and you'd see red spots all over, or red dots. So if you have a lower mite load, you might, you know, you knock 100 of them off, you might see one, right?
No, I did an alcohol wash not Sunday, but like what weeks before that.
Okay.
I didn't create anything. And like, I know everybody, like, everybody.
It's
has
possible,
mites, but like,
No, it's possible that, like, when you sample that you found them, right? And that you might be at a threshold and you just sampled the frame. You know, that didn't, you just got these that didn't have it. That's fine. I would just pre-sample. Like you set a threshold or you set like your bar or like your first wash at 0. Now in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you would get it. Now, if this kind is 15, you know, like you have to know and act accordingly. It might be 1 or 2, you know, it might be 0 again. You just don't know, right?
That assay method that you talked about, where you
Yeah.
open up 100 cells,
Yeah.
then you want to open up, how do you say, growing foam?
No, purple light people. It can be any, it can be any.
So it could be workers emails.
Yeah, could be workers. I think we do workers, 100 workers, yeah. Yeah, if anyone wants to do that sometime, I'm also to do that. So, gotta bring over a frame of purple light people.
There's some really good walkthroughs on Tori Stevens'
Yep.
website.
Yep.
There's a walkthrough on Harbo's website
John's, yeah,
as well, because
he started it, yeah. Yep. Yeah, so yeah, you got like a great queen and it has no lights, like bring a frame over, that will take a look.
All right, sort of a tangent on this. Any thoughts on planting rhubarb, spinach or thyme around your hives?
I've never seen any definitive research where it's effective. And put it in your smoker and all that stuff, because those are all high in oxalic acid, I
Yeah.
believe, so. Yeah, I've never really seen anything from that, so I don't know. I'm not sure, I just buy the bag and use it for the treatment. Yeah,
I
no,
read
like,
once where someone said, crush the stalks, put the leaves of the rhubarb and crush the stalks between the root and the super. And
Yeah,
as the bees are trying to remove that, they're moving acid around
you
the.
could, yeah, it's definitely, I'm not saying it's not possible, I just think the concentration is probably pretty low. And if you have 3 grams of like 100% concentrate, and it's not really that effective. You know, especially if there's brood, to put something in there that's maybe only got like 1/1,000,000th or 1/1000th of that level of OA. I just can't see it being that effective. I'm not sure though. I'm not sure on the different plants what they're actually really levels are. So to me, I think you'd be making a mess in there, you know, with stuff, you know, not really getting a lot of bang for your buck, but I know I've read where people have tried it and done some studies on it. I just didn't see or don't recall seeing any that are like that. I mean, if that's the case, I think you'd see it a lot more. Than what we-
Hey, when's the next time inspection?
Saturday,
So my watches, let's go.
then somebody come do it, because I'm not good at it.
What time is that inspection?
It's from 11 to 2
At your place, you think?
at my place.
I gotta rest my arm.
It's an expert.
Okay, yeah, so we've got, we've got, you know, several hives, for the club, and at my place and if somebody, I am this, and that I am not good at my counts and treatments, and stuff, but, so if somebody wants to come do it.
Let's do it. So I want to go back to the language thing on there for, I think the majority of people here are building their chops on Spot McQueen. So it makes me very nervous doing my washes, but you should still be doing them. What you can do is go through that hive. So first of all, look around this room, make some friends, trade some phone numbers, not just one, like 4 or 5 people, trade telephone numbers with them, even if you guys are both new. Get a B buddy or a couple of B buddies, because it'll help keep you accountable on this stuff. I know you've heard me say it a bazillion times, but do it anyways. Get another person there with you to go look over those. I do it all the time with Mike. I'll call Mike up and say, Mike, I need a hand. Can you look through frames with me and try and spot a queen, just so I can get her locked down below stuff or whatever. And we look at hundreds and hundreds of queens. I mean, it's
Sometimes, man, they're like so camouflage or like they're hide and go seek champions.
some of them are like impossible to find.
Yes.
And then others like, you know, boom, you can see, I pulled 8 tonight. 6 of them were a piece of cake. 2 of them took me an hour and a half. Right, so it's just in the new. So it just depends, right? So take your nuke with you, go through your hive, try and find that queen. When you find that queen, take that frame with her, put it in the nuke. Then go look for a nice frame of emerging brood with lots of nurse bees come out of it, and use that for your sample. That way, you know you put eyes on that queen. Because nothing will make you more sad than looking at that mite wash cup and seeing a dead queen in there. Now that said, should that stop you from doing mite washes? Absolutely not. But, I mean, you can always go buy another queen or find a queen somewhere else and make a split, or you still got time to do on this, you know, to do walkaways or whatever, that kind of thing. You still have options right now. That's why we're driving home, take action now.
Yeah.
Now, that said, I just had, I don't know, 4 or 5 hives that crashed.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure it's from mites. So I'm going through and watching everything I can. So anybody that wants to come play with bees, hit me up. I'll be doing my washes all the time. I'll try and see you Saturday if I can help you out with that.
I will make a suggestion about that grouping. One of our members who's over in Monticello, that's a pretty long hike to come over to our hives here for, you know, kind of mentorship. She actually, what she did is she kind of said beekeepers of Monticello. So it's a smaller group, but people kind of close to her and they kind of team up, you know, using that Facebook group to kind of communicate with each other, say, hey, we'll be at my house today, we'll be at that house that day, I'm going into my hive, anybody want to come? So like, you know, sometimes when you're, like you guys are coming over from Rantoul, if you can find maybe like a little subgroup of other Rantoulians that have hives and make a little group that you kind of travel to give that support back and forth to each other. I thought that was a great idea, you know, like Hudson's got quite a few areas, so they, again, if you've got like if you're willing to work with the people who are kind of close to you, just kind of put it out there, that was a way of being able to support each other close, like, okay, like you're up in Fairbury, say, okay, beekeepers are Fairbury, and so you can say, hey, we're gonna go in our hive today, anybody wanna come see? You know, kind of stuff. She had some real basic.
Yeah, use the Facebook page and say, hey, I need a hand. Can somebody come walk through? Because our place is so spread out. Like I know we have people from Kentucky on our page. We've got people from Michigan, Wisconsin, all that stuff. It's just go work bees with other people because you're gonna learn a lot.
Yeah, I'm in Downs, Hayward, and North Norman. We're at 8 years.
So again, yes, but she did a nice job of just kind of making a little group of, and they kind of rotate going to the hive,
That's a great idea.
you know, and it was, so it's people that aren't real far away. Yeah,
I think
so,
there's another one of those down by Springfield too, like the Illinois family keepers or something like that. I think they're out of Springfield area.
you know, somebody's got to take the initiative, to kind of start the little group, but kind of put it out there, kind of, okay, who's my other beekeepers in right this, you know, little area. And, you know,
And I'll tell people all the time, because I've had a lot of you even ask me and say, hey, can you come go through my hives with me? And I'll usually say, maybe, but you're gonna learn a lot more if you come go through hives with us, where we can go through 5, 10, 15, as many as you can handle.
Yep.
Like going through a bunch of nukes, you're gonna learn so much more. Or going through 4 or 5 hives, you're gonna learn so much more than going through just 2.
yeah, and the girls like to throw us curveballs quite often. They're kind of like, because I had a rookie, first time she's ever been in a hive, and that particular hive had 5 queens running around. She kept, there's a queen. Wait a minute, where are these girls coming from? And, but this was rookie, she was picking up these queens just like that, first time she'd ever been in a hive. So, yeah. I did some splits. So. What else we got?
So we got like 10 minutes for questions. What are people seeing in their hives?
One of the things I saw, okay, I harvested and I've seen this on Facebook, is the cappings. Usually I put out the cappings and they kind of, you know, the bees clean it up and stuff like that. They haven't had any interest.
Yeah, they're still on strong.
Saw that on Facebook.
Yeah,
I saw you out there.
Dirt's another. Like
Yeah.
Mike's got some, dirt's, he's not seeing anything.
It's just like trickle, a couple are like trickle flow, like there's like enough nectar where they're still going and drawing a little wax, but they're not crazy yet, but I have others where they're going crazy and putting nectar all over and.
What about a water source? I know they talk about having a water source. I've got a pond that's.
Yeah.
Probably about 50 yards from my hive, so.
So perfect.
Yeah.
The pool works too.
Yeah.
They're real happy. The saltwater pool.
I mean, go look. Really, that's the thing, is like, you have a beer in there, and go to the next to the hives. Pay attention to where they're going.
They all turn around and go right into the timber. I've got a 10-acre field and there's flooding in it and everything else, but they all pull out and go right straight into the timber, so. I'm not exactly sure where they're headed. I did find a couple in my pumpkin blossoms. Not before last, but this is the first year. For this year, I had 2 hives. You know, one's going gangbusters and the other one, you know, they're like them.
I'm gonna give you a speech now.
No.
Are you gonna talk about moving some brood over?
You do,
Yeah.
So what you do there is you count your brood frames really strong when you're weak one. One's got 4, the other one's got 10. You just make them equal. You just take the cat brood and
put eyes on
the
the
one
one.
and put it in a little strong. Make it strong.
The queens in both of them have a good, I mean.
Yeah, just
good
make sure
low
you don't
marks.
shoot one out, but just pull some of that cat brood out of the one hive and put it in the other, and then it'll. Like a frame of brood is like, was it a pound of bees or 1.5 bees? It's like almost a pack, half a package. So you know how many bees that was, like, that's like, it's like a shot in the arm. Or like,
Mike's telling you this because that's from experience.
we do
Like,
this, I do this all.
He came by me and we went to your hives like a long time, it was like 6, 7 years
You
ago.
guys were doing it today that, came and picked up that package.
Oh,
Yeah, we
yeah.
did. But yeah, it's hard to do as a new beekeeper though, because you think, here, I've got this stellar hive.
Yeah.
Doing really good. You, I'm not so sure about. And so you hate to take from that strong one, you think you're gonna weaken it, but really you're not gonna weaken it that much if it's that strong.
If I give them a hive and it's 8 or 9, like real strong brood frames, 3 or 4 cat, I'm pulling 1 or 2 out anyway. And putting the foundation and drawing comb in and setting them on the side, and then when I go to the next one, when I have one that's only got 4 or 5, I'm throwing it in there. So I have a box, like a new box that I just keep right there with me all the time, and I'm always putting brood in and out of that box and moving it around.
And right now, while it's before the dirt, it's okay to leave the other hive open for a
Yeah,
little
they
bit
won't.
while you're doing that, like as long as it's during the day. Like you can get away with some of that to be able to go through and figure out, because if you got 2 hives, it's gonna be a lot different than Mike and I going through, 20 or 30 in a yard and pulling frames and things like that. Like, go through and look at what you got. Sit down, cool down, have a cold drink or something, And then come back in and figure out what's your strategy in moving stuff.
Yep.
Between your hives, put eyes on that queen.
Yep.
And move your frames around, balance them out.
But even watering the garden and stuff like that, we put filling up a little bird bath and different ones even for the bees, and it's just funny, they're just every morning they're there, even our spigot, you can't hardly get to the spigot because they're looking for any drop of water they can get.
Yeah, it's crazy, like just where your hose connects and there's a little bit down there. I have hives down the street from my house that the nearest water supply is probably half a mile from there. But what they love, they'll skip that pond where there's lots of all kinds of funk and stuff that bees love. What they love are those brand new saltwater swimming pools that all those fancy people got in that neighborhood. There's like 6 of them in there. And 3 or 4 of them tell me, I see your bees in there all the time drinking. And the kids told me at the farmer's market the other day, I take my flip flop and I lift those bees up when they get stuck in the water. They now have become, they watch the bees on the edge of that pool at night, watch them drink. And they know about it, right? So what I'll do is those people with those pools, I'll drop money off. Right, because I don't want them spraying reagents, stuff like that on them. Like, you just build that rapport and they're like, oh, there's nothing to be afraid of. I can just scoop them up and they're fine. It's just building that relationship with them. But they love saltwater pools. I've seen a lot of people actually add Epsom salts to like a chicken water and put it there.
Well, I had a few of them that were swimming upside down, so I took dead branches off my house. They threw the branches in,
Oh, yeah.
they'll climb right up that branch and take off.
I put water in and they never touch
You would put a rock a piece of limestone, flagstone, and so that way it goes down into the water as well, so that way they can work their way up and down it.
They drink off the end of that branch, because it still absorbs water. More than will drink off the end of that branch, because it sticks up on the edge. I mean, like 5 sitting there fighting over the end of that branch, and I got the whole, none of it.
Add some more branches.
Okay.
I've got a question.
Okay, go ahead, Len.
Okay, I'm gonna try and not turn this into an entire novel, which I probably could, but I ended up about 2 weeks ago needing to squish my queen because she was no longer laying. And I was feeling okay about that despite how upsetting it was, because I probably literally had 10 queen cups in there, couple of them with jelly. Thought we were headed in the right direction, that they knew what they were doing and I was going to be okay. Closed it up to give it some time to, produce a queen and get her out and get her mated. Opened it back up a little bit over a week later, and the queen cups were chewed, some of them on the side, a couple on the bottom, but I couldn't find a queen. Obviously no eggs still, but my bees are as happy and gathering honey as can be. I went in a couple of days ago, so that might have been a week in between, maybe a week and a day in between, and still no eggs. And I can't find any of those, what looks to me like it could have been 6 or 8 queen cups, can't find a queen. So I moved over a frame of eggs, brood, and larvae from my other hive. I'm just wondering, is that probably either too little, too late, and I should just go and get a queen?
When did you say you first, like, when you switch the queen, it can be 4 or 5 weeks sometimes.
It was the first time from when when the queen cups were there and I squished the queen, it's probably only been 2 weeks. But the queen cups have now been chewed out. So I guess I thought they were released. Is that, am I not?
Yeah, so then she'll run around for 5 to 6 days and maybe even 7 and then go mate and then come back and it can take her another 4, 5, 6 days before she's even laying her first set of eggs.
So maybe I'm just,
There's some calculators online where you can like put the dates in and give you like an approximate thing, but most of the time you want to wait a couple weeks.
which, I mean, definitely there was a couple of weeks in between when the queens were in there as queen cells.
Yeah, it's based on the so like from the day the egg is laid, right? 3 days later is when they start to make it, and then 11 days after that, she's ripe and emerges. And then she runs around in the hive for 5, 7 days, depending on the weather and the temperature. She'll do a couple of orientation flights and come back mated. And then it can be 2 weeks after that before she'll start laying well.
Are they calm?
Yeah, she said they were calm and happy bringing in honey.
Oh my gosh, I've never seen them so happy, which is why I was like, what? Even going in there, I opened it up and I went all the way down to the bottom looking for them. And they weren't mad at me. They were fine. Just too early, is that what you're thinking?
I'd give it another week. If you put anything in there now, you're most likely to sacrifice it.
Say that again?
It'll kill it if you put anything in there now, if there's a, queen in there.
Put a queen in there.
Oh, yeah. So,
Keep waiting.
I'd wait.
okay.
This feels like one of them.
I don't like patience. Patience is scary.
Just be happy this is in September.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And if you put fresh eggs in there on a frame, you'll know, I mean, if they don't have a queen, they'll make another cell.
I was like, there's no harm in putting a frame of eggs in there. So, yeah, that's, okay.
It's never clean.
Yeah.
Nope, I was very sure it was not my queen. Not from the other hive, right. Thank you, guys.
All right, got a couple more chat questions. Nick's asking, so if you have a mite problem now, do I need to treat now with HopGuard or wait? It sounded like you said wait due to high temperature weather.
I mean, I think you've got a little bit of time before it's really critical. It just depends on when you think you're gonna be pulling your supers. And kind of work back from there. And what the health, if you have other hives in the area, you don't want to have that drip go to. When I get above 5%, I treat no matter what with something. So I look at the temperature and the weather. I roll the dice with formic a lot more than I think the average person probably would or should, because I'm going to replace all the queens anyway. And if I lose the queen, I'm just going to put one in there. The next time I go to check, I'll put a cell or a virgin or a mated queen. But I tend to be I lost a lot of hives really not being very proactive with treatment. And maybe I've swung the pendulum a little bit the other way, but I kind of do no mercy on the mites. I would strongly, I don't know what your count was when it says, if it's above that 5% threshold, I would most likely do something.
Brett's seeing your neighbor should treat.
Yeah.
So you know.
Me and my neighbor.
Blood bonds.
Which neighbor?
What's he, the guy north of Dusty.
Yeah.
North of Dusty.
Yeah. Yeah, with that little sliver of land. With the shack that shoots all the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let me know, Tom, I'll treat your stuff for you.
Right, all right.
For real.
I think in response to Tom's send numbers around, Nick's added his number out here for any bee chats. It's 309-533-6333. And then Steve said to cut off the rain barrel bottom, fill it up with rocks and add water, add a cup full of bleach, and the bees seem to love it. And he had a possible, can we maybe touch on a walkaway split in the last couple of minutes?
Yeah. You want how to do it? What do you want to know about walkway splits?
Steve, you still there? You want how, or what about the split? How and when?
you still got
He
probably,
says how one.
you're getting a little low on time for walkaway splits, got probably 3-4 more weeks, maybe a little bit longer, because they'll start killing, it's all based on when they'll start killing the drones. Like you'll go out and we'll see, they stop letting the drones come in the hive, they'll just be all like out in front and all dead. So like, working back from that, and when they're made, still have some time. So you just gotta provide the resources for them to make the queen, so you need a frame of eggs and really young larvae. And then a frame of capped brood, so that they'll, and then starting to emerge, so they have the resources to feed and tend to the hive. And then I like a frame of food with some pollen on it to give them the resources they need to make the bee bread to feed the queens, the royal jelly. And then I like to use a frame of foundation and a frame of drawn comb. And then you can, if you can, take them someplace a little bit further away so they don't drift back out. Or you can lock them in for a few days, that can kind of help. But just make sure you isolate the queen first. So have someone come and help you look for it, or you can shape your bees down through like a queen excluder with like a box on the top. And then the queen will get stuck and you can find it pretty easy that way. And then you can put her down, cage her, put her off to the side that way. Or have, like someone, like have somebody come and help you do that. That's why I call it a walkaway split. You just give them the resources they need. It has to be a pretty strong move. And then you just walk away and then you check back in about 5 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks. You should have them made and clean and push again.
All right, Marvin, raise your hand. Marvin Jago Peoria, he has, these are, I believe, are turkey feathers, am I correct?
Yeah.
He has several of them he's giving away, so if you would like one, please take one. What do you use them for? Marvin, what do you use them for?
Sweeping bees.
Sweeping bees, so
That's
like
all right.
bee brushes, things, some of them like this, and stuff like this, so brushing off frames and stuff. So we have several, so they can, go that way. Okay.
But I learned about the turkey tails, turkey feathers from my Amish friend, Marlon. And he was one that told me, so you want to use the cup set?
Yeah.
And you flick like this, and they'll come right off and they won't be angry.
No,
Just use that bee brush, they don't like it at all.
no.
So that works fantastic. And when it gets sticky, just wash it off and you're good to go.
Okay, so
It
He brought
really, it
several.
works unbelievable. I have a bunch for that reason.
Oh, really?
Yes, I use one every time I graft. Like I, find the breeder queen and get her, like if she's on the frame, move her off. I take that bee brush and sweep it down the hive. It's amazing.
Brush or feather?
What's that?
Use the bee brush or feather?
Feather.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
you said bee brush, so.
No, I started brushing them off with the
Okay.
feather. Yeah, it's money.
Okay, those of you at home, my sister bought me these cute little tubs. It has approximately a square inch of comb. And I had the group here kind of guesstimate how much that would be. And I measured like what you typically buy in a comb box, so it'd be 16 times this, because there's about 16 squares in that box. And, okay, Tom, I thought you were gonna go get it, but Kara snuck in. Just look, you had $5.95, she had $5.99, so $6. This 16 times 6, that would be close to $100 for a box of comb. Marketing is what you get. All right.
All right, so I looked those up online after I made my guess, and you can get them with free shipping for $70 for a box of 24.
So that's marketing. Yeah, so you could get $100 for that box of comb and think about that. All right, anything else anybody needs to add? Where's our next meeting? Here, we don't know yet.
Yeah, we need to chat about that real quick. We'll have a quick online board session the next day or two.
Okay, So, bees and brews, okay, so, I post on, I've got all the dates of my, on the little newsletter I send out or Facebook on what I have, live inspections, anybody welcome. I had a 6-year-old, I think it's 4-year-old, she left about 20 minutes. So bees and brews, schooners in Bloomington on Wednesday, whatever that was, second Wednesday is.
So Nick had one real quick last question online. If he needs a new queen, where can you get one?
I got a couple of them sitting ready to go.
Nick, you hear that?
Tom P.
Tom Pancone.
Honey Pimpy berries.
I have some brochures
Holy-
too, so. Okay, these 2 rows of chairs and tables stay, and the ones back there need to be folded up and put away. And then, okay. And you.
Treating them all right, or?
Yeah, I'm gonna take them home and get them, but.
All right, guys, thanks. Good night.
I'm gonna grab you a cup, I'm down there making on a Saturday.
Yeah.